It's a huge, it's a huge deal. And I love well, when you announce Solvent Sunday, I'm like, yeah, I'm solvent. Oh my gosh. And I know that what defines debting in this program are debts that we incur that are not somehow backed up by, real estate or property or whatever, However, we also read that, when we're debting, it's done with a different feeling, when using credit cards or credit than with our own money. And uh, that sums up what really brought me to this program was a home equity line of credit for a lot of money that I took out. And it brought me to DA in 2008, 2009, because it was just, back then they were giving anybody a loan without asking, they would base it on stated income. So I'm like, oh, I earn this much, and they didn't mind. And they gave me a very large sum of money. And of course, it's backed up by my house, but I spent that like I was drunk, because when it comes to me in insolvency, when, fast forward in the program, when I'm spending my own money, I'm a super deprivation addict. So it's those widely swinging extremes between the two. So I spent that in a very short amount of time, just a couple of years. It was a lot of, I would say it's $130,000, and whether it's backed up by the property or not, I didn't go underwater, but my Eskimo, or the person that brought me into DA, is this couple that I knew that was very grounded in their DA program, and they recognized in me, oh boy, and thank God. And I'm so thankful for them for that, because they recognize, like, okay, and they go, we think maybe you're an under or a debtor. And they shoved a book in my hand, something about under earning. And they say, well, we think, you wouldn't have this problem with debting if you earn more, sort of thing. It was a book. And I recognized myself in all the signposts of under earning. I'm like, oh God, that's a pretty demoralizing recognition about, who I am and what I am. But boy, was that the start of a whole long path. And I'm so grateful for that. But the first thing my friend had said to me, for this large amount of money, she goes, do you plan on paying that back? And I'm like, pay it back? I can't even, pay my bills or my mortgage or anything. Pay back that amount. Are you kidding? I just felt so hopeless, so hopeless. It was just, and then as far as credit cards, I had $10,000 worth of credit cards and 10,000 in the bank. And my other Eskimo pointed out, your net worth is zero. Plus I had that huge equity line that have to pay it back. And that's a lot of, that's a very high mortgage payment, and an equity line payment every month is like $1,000 extra every month since 2008. This is a lot of years of that. And it was just the way it made my life feel, that I was desperate, and I just felt so weighed down and just so much like a victim. And I just wanted to swing back to, what is it I'm swinging back to? The thing that we read, in our 12 and 12 about, on step 3, we're told that we could not recover from this overwhelming and potentially deadly malady. Hello, it is deadly. And my whole story, I'm jumping around, so I can't do it in a totally linear way. So that's just how I'm do it. But, the trauma that underlines my whole, all my diseases and the debting disease is the story. I have my dad, who really was a victim of this malady, and he felt so weighed down and encumbered, and in every way, so just completely suffocated by lack of opportunity and not getting to do the thing he loved in his life. And just feeling like there was no way out. He couldn't do his own business. He wanted to do it. He had to take a job he hated. It was just nonstop money worry, and my parents screaming all the time. And he was only in his 50s when he had his first massive heart attack. And then he died of cancer, a few years after that. And I was only 21, and I'm very immature for my age. So I still felt like I'm just a kid, and I lost my dad. And that was a trauma. And I've, through DA, been able to, lucky enough to do some trauma work on that. But all of that came up. That's like, I took that on. So much has to, of my disease just has to do with this fear and worry and anxiety of, in desperation around money. And that's why, you know, that I'm a, you know, I am just humbled by the idea, my disease, I mean, you know, that it is a potentially deadly malady. So just to go back a little bit, I came in 2008, 2009, and the bottom line was I just was not willing to do a spending plan. You know, I did all the earning actions, I did all the stuff they told me. Spending plan, no, no, that's for everyone else. No way can I look at those numbers, because when I had first come in, you know, mail was piling up in stacks. I couldn't look at it. Anything with numbers would just, I was afraid. I was like, oh my God, it's so traumatizing. I'm going to have a heart attack. You know, that there's so much anxiety surrounding anything with numbers. So I took away the small kernel that they had taught me. Do 3 earning actions a day, just earn, and spent the next some years building my business and earning, but still not willing to look at numbers or do numbers. So money was coming in. I was in positive cash flow. It was a miracle because, you know, yeah, that part was a miracle. But what brought me in again 5 years ago, and it's just so committed, like they say, you know, you get a head full of recovery while you're out there, but can't make it back. I'm like, if only I could make it back, if only I could get a spending plan. And 5 years ago, I came back, and that was around having my aunt passing away and having to work on her estate stuff, you know, all her numbers. And I literally thought I was going to have, you know, anything with money. I'm not, when I'm saying heart attack, I'm not like, you know, exaggeration and hyperbole. It's like, really, my heart's doing this so bad that that is not sustainable, that somehow, you know, I'm going to get a heart attack. It's just, you know, I could see myself kind of going down that path as my dad, you know. So anyway, fast forward 4.5 years ago, if I make it to July 12th, I will have 5 years of daily numbers, which for me, that's the miracle of miracles. Thank you. And how it, you know, I wanting to tell you, you know, you hear all the time, God's in the numbers, you know, and I was like, oh, come on, what the heck are you talking? God being in numbers, it's numbers, they're antithetical. One is material, one is, you know, they don't. So anyway, I'm here to say, I know we choose a selection of reading to base our share on. And I just, you know, in the past 5 years, my anxiety level, by the grace of God, by a miracle, has subsided. I just spoke with spoke to my sponsor last week. I said, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so serene and peaceful. Like that for me is super uncharacteristic, that there's this, it's everything to do with abundance and numbers and feeling peaceful and grounded, knowing that my situation is okay. And over these years, you know, when the anxiety would be just too much, the thing that I would grasp onto every time when we read our promises was like, we will recognize a power greater than ourselves as the source of our abundance. Oh my gosh. And that's the little straw I clung on to in my recovery all this time. It's like, God's got me, God's got me. And that's borne out here in the numbers, because, you know, every time I think everything's going completely to hell, I look at the numbers. Actually, not. Oh, every month, almost every month, I've been in positive cash flow, you know, since I started. There have been a couple months when some not so good things happened, but the majority of the months I've been in, you know what I mean? So the numbers tell a different story than like the crazy fear I have in my head. And I'm feeling like I'm living such an abundant life at this moment. It's just, okay, so the biggest thing that I have to share in terms of miracles and and the fact that, because this is a potentially deadly malady, it's got all my attention, and it's the foundational part of thing in my life. So the very first thing I do every morning when I sit with my coffee is sit down and look at my bank and write down my numbers. And I have an app in my phone that tracks it in real time, so I can see that I'm staying in the spending plan, and I'm you know, I'm staying in my spending plan. And then today was the first, so either the last day of the month or the first, I upload it all into my spending plan, and then I do 3 months of numbers, averages, and have my PRG every 3 months. I've been doing this since the beginning. And that's the tool that's, you know, changed life so much, to not have to do this alone and have someone on my team that's supportive and not shaming. And also a little aside about, you know, I've always felt shame.
Another 5?
I'm all done?
No, that was your second 5.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, just about feeling so much shame about being like somebody who screws up, with money and finances, you know, and too ashamed to try investing and speaking to, retirement, thing. What I'm going, I'll get a little confused. Um, DA has these wonderful workshops, and that last year I attended their retirement workshop. It's the first time I haven't felt shamed about, oh, you haven't prepared, you haven't done it. The first thing they said to everybody in the workshop was, aren't you all so brave to be here? I'm like, hello. And I've done, PIGs around retirement. It turns out I can retire. Nobody's saying, oh, you screwed up, you can't retire, and all this stuff. So, I mean, right there, that's a blood pressure going down many times. It's everything. And just, that God being the source of my abundance, and attending vision workshops and having visions. And it's like crazy when you write these things down or put up images, how these things come true. And like the biggest takeaway, I'll say quickly, because I've been with my husband for going on 13 years. And in this time, up until a few years ago, thanks to DA, I was shouldering all the financial responsibility. And that's friggin' anxiety producing too. And thanks to my PRG and therapy and everything, I was able to communicate to him, you know what? I need some help here. I can't take all this on myself. Can you help me? And then for 2 years, he had a job that was consistent. He was able to, healthcare and some consistent income. And then in October, he took on this job that paid, I'm vague, 3 or 4 times what that other one was paying. And he's been able to up his contribution to me by 3 and 4 times, depending on the month, which is friggin' amazing. And the biggest takeaway, I never could qualify for, and tried, I did many times to do a refi, because my PRG said combine that, mortgage with that home equity line that's so encumbering. And because of his new job, just in the nick of time, we got the low interest rate and we were able to combine it. I'm now saving $700 a month and feeling so less desperate and frightened and like a victim, because I have a renter and I don't like it. But all these years I thought, well, I'm a victim. I have no choice in the matter. And my PRG said, create a life you don't want to escape from. You know what I mean? Now, the way things are, if I don't want that renter anymore, we could be okay. And it's changing my whole perspective, because like since 2006, I've had this renter. And I have a guest house, and I'm like, I don't like having somebody there, but I have no choice, and I'm a victim. And I'm like, so life just seems like the anxiety just going down so much. And just like the most basic thing in 12 step about one day at a time, it's like really hearing that on a new level. Like I'll get those scared feelings at night, like, oh, what if this happens, what if that happens? I'm like, well, today it's 99.99999% certain none of that's going to happen. So I'm really in the moment in that too. And that's like very calming. So for somebody like me, just the fact that, and then do I have any time left?
You have 6 minutes.
Oh, this is wonderful. So the other wonderful takeaway from my PRGs and from DA, I was sharing at meetings all this time about I want to murder my business partner, because I have a business I do with a partner. And then I have an offshoot of that, which is my solo aspect of that, which I enjoy more because I'm doing it myself. And it was just, my partner and I've been doing this together for 13 years. Anyway, my PRG said, why don't you focus on your solo business? Hey, why don't you build a website? This was last January, a year ago in January. And I'm like, well, there's a revelation. Well, I build my own freestanding and just dedicated to me. And literally since I do the footwork, God's in the results business. Every time I do my work tour, that, and I'm in the perpetual tools also, where just every day, I spent the 10 minutes building the website. My personal solo business this month was almost 3 times more than the one I do with my partner. In preceding months, it has been sometimes 3 times more, sometimes twice as much. It's more. And the fact is, I love doing it. And it's a kind of business that makes people happy, and it's being of service. And also I'm all done. Anyway, I'm just one grateful so-and-so, and I'm just so happy I get to be here and say why DA is the most important thing in my life. Literally, it's number one. And what a life I feel I have at the moment. So thank you for inviting me to share today.